Hi, I'm Maria Thea Harris or Velo Sews on social media. Welcome back to Sew 50 podcast on Sew Organised Style. Grab a cuppa, support this podcast on Patreon, and relax with us. If you're watching this podcast on YouTube, please subscribe to this channel, like and comment so more people can see and hear from our podcast guests. Today's guest is Alison Martin of Sew Like Dotty, and she's here on the podcast as today's Sew 50 guest. So let's get into it. I was watching you doing the sharing on the
Oh,
cover
the
stitch.
sharing. Oh, I see what you mean.
Sharing.
Yeah, yeah. Share. It's all right. It's the accents. We say it differently.
And, the thing that I loved with watching you was that I could listen to your voice because we've both got very strong accents. So I'll have a better understanding. I won't be sitting there going, "What did you say?" Because that would just be rude. Alison Martin, thank you for coming onto the podcast of Sober 50. I'm really pleased that you've given me your time today.
It's great to be here. I'm really looking forward to it.
Now, I know you on Instagram as So Like Dotty. Where did that name come about?
So when I was trying to think of a name for my sewing channel and Instagram, it's really hard, isn't it? Because there's such a variety of names. But my middle name is actually Doreen, and when I was younger, my brother used to call me Spotty Dotty, which I didn't like.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know why. So like Dotty just sort of came into my head, and that was it.
And I love the logo that you've got as well. It's quite refreshing.
Yeah, just kind of. Well, I'm wearing red today actually, but I'm a very pink girl. Pink and blue are my colours, so I just kind of went with that. It's very straightforward. But lots of people think I'm called Dotty, so I do get called Dotty sometimes, but that's okay.
So when you go to things like Stitch Festival, do people say, Dotty, how are you?
No, most people kind of come over and say, "Is it Alison?" I think it is. It's always really like, yes, oh, okay.
Lovely. I've got some facts about you, and I honestly, listeners and people who are watching, I just took this from your bio. You're a sewist, you're a
Mhm.
sewing vlogger, you host Sew Virtual,
That's right.
Baby Lock UK brand ambassador,
Yeah,
and a sew over at Pattern Insider.
that's right. Yeah.
And do you work full time?
I've been self-employed for 18 years
Yeah.
and I retired from that very recently in April. So I'm kind of transitioning into a new part of my life, which I'm very excited about, getting used to a bit more of a chilled vibe. I've retired young, I'm 57. So for me, the sewing part is creative
Yep.
and so really kind of feeds me and my energy and have a need to do that. But also, it's allowing me to provide an income from that sewing that's allowed me to retire early. So I feel very blessed by that, really.
And it's all your hard work in creating all of these communities that exist now and are running really well.
Yeah, I think so. I think if I hadn't established Sew Like Dotty over the last 4 years, then there wouldn't have been a base. People wouldn't know who I was, so it would have been
Hmm.
quite hard to have established, particularly the virtual sewing. I
Hmm.
think the in-person one, I did have a sewing studio where I taught sewing for a little while, so I sort of met local people there, and their friends would come and things like that. But the virtual one, I think if I'd not had so like Dotty already, that would have been almost impossible to have set up.
Okay. So, I mean, 4 years, it's a long time, but you've set it up and it's allowed you to take time out of basically retire, but really
Yeah.
you're not retired.
No. I'm finding a balance. I've created a new routine. So I give myself so many work days, but that's sewing, recording, editing, the sort of virtual sessions. And then I've got 4 days that are kind of my days off, but I'm still, maybe doing some EPP or I'll think, oh, I'll do a bit of sewing today. So that allows me to have that me time, just that creative time, because I think if you're a crafter and it becomes your business,
Yeah.
it can switch off that creativity side because there's a
Yeah.
need to earn and that can put pressure on. So I'm trying to keep that balance. If it's a beautiful day outside and I want to go outside, like we're going to the coast today, my husband and I, then I can just think, yeah, I don't have to kind of go, oh no, I can't do that because I need to schedule this or I need to do that. So I'm quite organized, I think,
Hmm.
and I try to get ahead with the vlogs that I want to put out. So they're scheduled in advance, and that allows me flexibility to kind of go, no, actually, I can just let's shoot off and do something really lovely today, which is nice, isn't it? Family time is everything, really.
It is. It's very much so. Yeah. So some of the facts that I've seen about Sew Like Dotty, and this was from Facebook, you've got almost 700 members,
Hmm.
and you don't manage that all on your own, do you?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
You do.
Yeah, I wanted to set up my own Facebook group that was a very safe zone. I believe that positivity really feeds positivity.
Yeah.
And I've been members of other, not just sewing groups, but craft groups where there hasn't, that's it's kind of been a current or it's not been managed.
Yeah.
And I've managed Facebook groups within my business environment. So I'm kind of quite used to logging in frequently, monitoring comments, taking action if they're inappropriate. And I really
Yep.
want it to feel safe. I feel very strongly. I know we're going to kind of get onto a gift in November later, but I feel very strongly that it doesn't matter whether it's the first thing that you've picked up and it's a straight line, might be a hand sewn needle case, or it might be some couture thing that you're doing it and you're developing and learning a new skill. And it doesn't matter where you're at in that range, we're all constantly learning. And I don't want people to feel like they can't share or they can't ask a question because we all know there's no such thing as a stupid question because often if somebody's asking it, 10 other people want to ask it as well. So far, I've managed to kind of monitor it and not have any, let's just say, strange people coming in and
Oh,
trying to
yeah.
do any damage.
Mm.
And I do that through the questions. So if people don't answer the questions, I don't just decline it, but I do send them a response saying you need to answer the questions because I just want to understand somebody's genuinely a sewer before they
Yeah.
get through that sort of gate into the Facebook group. But generally, touch wood, it runs, yeah, it runs really smoothly actually. And it's just, I love it. I love being part of the community. So it's an opportunity to widen that community a little bit more.
And if anyone isn't part of the So Like Dotty Facebook group, I've gone in there and thank you for accepting me as a member
Oh,
because you know that I genuinely do so.
yeah,
Having a look at the posts, there is a good conversation. When anyone puts a post up, there's always, it's not just you who are answering their
yeah,
questions or their concerns, it's everybody else pipes up. And that's a good indicator that the environment is safe and people are able to
yeah.
share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm pleased about that. That takes time to develop in a Facebook group. It can
Mm.
feel like as the administrator, you're the person who's liking and commenting all the time. Well, I think in any community at first, it just takes a bit of work and a bit of development and building a rapport, doesn't it? And then that conversation quite naturally flows. I think that's why, I can go out today and not think that I've got to monitor it all the time or anything like that. It's yeah, it's fine. I don't need post approval on. I'm happy that people post, but equally, if somebody posted something in it was inappropriate, I would just remove it, and then I would message them and say why I'd removed it. But I love it when other people comment on other people's posts. That's conversation, isn't it? And
Yeah.
support. And if you've ever put a post on anywhere, and you can see that people have seen it, but nobody's
Mm.
clicked the thumbs up or nobody's put a comment on it. It's really, you know, it, you
Mm.
kind of think, oh, what was the point if nobody's going to do anything? So yeah, it's nice when people take that time. I do appreciate it. And other
Yeah.
people I know do as well.
To me, it looks like it's running really well. Alison, what is your sewing story? I don't know that I've actually asked you that.
I've tried to think back to when I started to sew, and it's really hard to sort of pinpoint an age.
Mm.
My mum was a machinist in the family in our area that we lived in. There was, a lot of clothing factories, a lot of
Yeah.
manufacturing. So a lot of people in my family did something of that nature. I think my mum started in a button factory,
Mm.
and then was a machinist. So I feel like I've always sewn. I think maybe around age 8, but in all honesty, I can't really remember. I just, how you kind of naturally start just to do things. I feel
Mm.
like it's been intrinsic, it's been part of my life. Well, most of my life, I did have a gap in the middle, like a lot of people, but for most of my life, it just was the normal. Certainly in the 80s in the UK, we had a series of, um, I don't know if this happens in the other parts of the world, like things that are published every 2 weeks that, might be encyclopedias or build something.
Right.
And Make It something it was called, and that was out in the
Yes.
80s. Can you remember that with patterns? And I absolutely loved that. Um, but we didn't have my mum didn't have a fabric stash. If we wanted fabric, we would just go to the fabric shop, and I can remember the big pattern drawers because it was all
Hmm.
the big four back then, looking through, and that gives me a really nice feeling, I suppose. I must have really enjoyed that process. I bet probably was a bit like looking through fashion magazines, but I was still
Yeah.
probably, I don't know, reading Twinkle magazine or something when I was really little, and then would go to the sewing shop and be looking through these fancy clothes and things. But also because of where my mum worked, um, she worked where they made Laura Ashley clothes, country casuals, things like quite from high street to mid end, let's
It's
say.
iconic.
Um,
Laura Ashley was quite iconic
yeah,
here.
absolutely. So I would get, some fabric would appear, or, some she would say we're making this pattern, and the pattern would appear, and yeah, it really gives me a nice feeling to kind of think about that. And I sewed really up till I think I was around my early 20s, maybe 21. I was a student nurse. I started on my 18th birthday, so those 3 years were very busy. And
Mm.
at some point, my social life really took off in that time, and sewing tailed off.
Yeah.
And I guess probably it's when things became much cheaper on the high street, and there was more availability on the high street as
Yeah.
well. I got a sewing machine for my 18th birthday, but I stopped sewing in my early 20s at some point, and then didn't really return to it till about maybe 6 years ago. I decided I didn't have a machine anymore. My mum had got her machine had gone. I asked my dad just for Christmas if I could get one of the Brother LS14, the basic machines.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a drop-in bobbin, and I'd not come across a drop-in bobbin before. And I thought, this machine's rubbish. It's not sewn properly at all. But I thought, because it said drop-in bobbin, because I'm rubbish at instructions, you just dropped it in and started sewing. I didn't understand that there was a pathway for the thread to go through for the tension and things. So I didn't, I made a skirt, and then just self-drafted, gathered skirt. And then I didn't do anything for quite a while. And then I thought, why they sell thousands of these machines? I must be doing something wrong. So then actually took the time a couple of years later to have a look at it and was like, oh yeah,
It was just one thing you had to do, and
yeah,
that
the
that took a
easiest
few years
thing.
to get there.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it's a similar story with people like myself who buy a Cover Pro machine and then try and use it and then don't use it again for about 6 months until we figure out, okay, I need to use it. I need to read the book. Yeah.
yeah, I'm terrible for not reading pattern instructions. Or I know some people, when they get a new machine, they read the manual from cover to cover, don't they, and make
Yep.
books of stitches. And at this time, I've got a new machine, and I thought, right, I'm going to do that this time. I'm going to work my way through all of the stitches. No, I just dive straight in again.
It's it's the pleasure of sewing. I think that's what it is. You just want to get straight into it, and
Yeah,
that's what happens.
yeah,
When we first started, you talked about Sew Virtual and a stitch in Tyne. Can you talk to us about what these two are?
yeah, sure. So when I was closing the sewing studio, two girls said, we really kind of still want to come together and sew.
Hmm.
And we just sort of said, well, let's find somewhere to make that happen. And even if there's only the three of us, we still get to do this together.
Yeah.
And Dawn used to be a HR manager of a really big supermarket, like a big national chain. And she said their cafe has become a community room, and I think you can get that for free. So she said, right, I'll sort that out. So she checked that out. They said, yep, it's available on a Sunday. So great, once a month we'll have that, please. And then they said you need public liability. So Mag said, I'll handle the insurance. And I said, well, I've got a booking system so I can flip that to
Mhm.
manage this. So we each kind of took a line of responsibility in it, which is lovely. And we still do that now. It's been over a year and a half, I guess, 2 years in September. It's not a business, it's a non-profit. We charge £5 just to cover some of the fees, and then anything else gets reinvested back into it. So ironing
Yeah.
boards, cutting mats, all the normal sort of things. We don't massively advertise that because it's now reached a point where it's generally full each time that we've got space for 12 people nice and comfortably. We don't want it to be overly full. And it's just a real pleasure now when we're in that room that you can hear the chat and the banter from we kind of do three groups of four. When people come in, we just sort of sit wherever you like, sit wherever you like. So it's not kind of like that table's reserved for you. You can just kind of go and sit wherever you want to. Once everybody's in, you can hear that sort of that banter level because everybody knows when you go to a sewing social, you don't actually do any sewing for about the first half an
True.
hour.
Yeah.
You just chat and what are you wearing, what have you been making? But that's great because it can be quite isolating, can it, if it's just you at a kitchen table or in a room at home. So yeah, that just runs really nicely. Um, we don't a kind of minimal effort really. We don't have to promote it. We do, I tend to do that. I'm probably more active on Instagram than the other girls are, but we're not really having a need to because it's filling up and just happening quite naturally really. It's
So
so
that's a stitch in
virtual.
time, right? Yeah.
That's a stitch in Tyne, yeah. The River Tyne flows through Newcastle, so that's where Dawn came up with the name, and she said, let's call it a stitch in Tyne instead of a stitch in time. So virtual was something I thought about when I had the studio, but because I was kind of working self-employed, working employed, and had the studio, it just wasn't something that I could take on at that time,
Yeah.
but I had an idea about it because in my previous job, when we went into lockdown, like many people, I ran groups on Zoom. I'm experienced at keeping a conversation flowing on Zoom and managing conversations. If somebody can be overly dominant, kind of jumping on a word and moving to somebody else and keeping the flow going and things. Um, so I kind of had that idea, and there are a couple of others. There's one that's been established for a couple of years, but I'd not been on any of them, so I didn't know what format they used. I
Yeah.
just had an idea of how I wanted to do it, which is kind of very much like you and me today, Maria, really. It's just, I kind of say to people, if they ask me what's it like, I say, well, just imagine you take your sewing machine, you go into a room with some people, you have a cup of coffee, or you might have a glass of wine, and you're just sewing and chatting, and that's what it is,
Mm.
but we're just doing it online. And sometimes, actually, weirdly, it feels like we're all in the room together,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we're all over the world.
And I think the nice thing is that you've got a limit of 25 people per session.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So,
about 25 to 28, but
mhm.
actually, around 23, 24, I find the
Mhm.
ideal level for me to manage so everybody gets some airtime. We get round everybody. We do a bit of I guess it's a bit like show and tell. So I try to go around everybody with, what are you making? What
Yeah.
did you finish? I've got a notepad here that I make notes, what people are making, and also notes of things that I want to go off and look at and maybe purchase after. Because,
Because you do have a warning that says that there's no guarantee that your stash won't grow as a result of
yeah,
being in the
that's
group.
true.
Yeah.
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 I'm often kind of looking for zip pulls or, right, I need to have a look at that bias tape or I need to have a look at that continuous zipper or that fabric's amazing. I need to go and buy that. I was looking for the little sort of cords with the tassels that you would maybe put on the end of a blouse, like an open neck blouse. And
Yep.
one of the girls, she'll kind of pop something up in the private Facebook group for that latest, saying somebody mentioned this and I found it somewhere. She's the
Oh,
finder And
Wow.
she'll say, I've been doing a bit of a search and I found this. I hope this is what the sort of thing you were looking for. Or equally, if somebody's kind of saying, oh, I'm making these trousers and I'm really struggling with the fly zip, somebody else will go, I made them and this is what I did, and like talk you through it. And a few weeks ago, a lady Jo was trying on some pants, and there was some excessive fabric, and she was literally standing up in them with her hands on her hips saying, I think I need to take it out here. And we were going, no, no, take your left hand lower, left hand lower. Right, stop.
Yeah.
That's where you need to make the adjustment. So it's
Yeah.
great. It's just like you're in a room, except that you're not. But it's
No.
lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. And it's
Yeah.
good that you're all helping each other.
Yeah, it's lovely. People have started to meet up. People are chatting, together, or people will follow up. So if they've not finished a garment, they'll put it on that Facebook group, and people will be like, "Oh, it's lovely to see it finished. It really suits you,"
Yeah.
or all those sort of comments. We've got a couple of people who like to try to do a project, so Radiance and them try to kind of gear up a project that they could finish in the time. So we often have a quick run out of the room and a run back in with something on saying, I'm here, it's finished, or just which buttons do you think? Or I mean, personally, obviously I'm the host, but I really love it. I feel part of it. The girls keep saying to me, why aren't you sewing? But I feel like if I was using my machine, I would need to go on mute. I feel like I'm the conductor. I'm there just to kind of conduct the orchestra of Sewists, I guess. Somebody will stand up and move to ironing board, and I'm kind of like, oh, right, what stage are you at? Lift it up,
Yeah.
how's it going? That kind of thing. But what happened, a little bit like we talked about with the Facebook group. So in the early days, I think we're 4 months, 3.5 months in. In the early days, it was me doing a lot of talking. But what happens now is people just naturally chip in, and I can sort of sit back a
Good.
little bit and let the conversation flow.
Yeah.
But when it's busier, I've got to be more switched on with my time management to make sure I get round everybody. But equally, there's a couple of people on there who, because of things that are going on in their life, are like, I'm on here, but I want to be a little bit quiet in the background. And that's, absolutely fine. We respect that. But equally, I feel like they've been given a little bit of just support
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
understanding by the group. So yeah, it's lovely to see that
That's good.
happen. Mm.
And it seems that you're running these sessions Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and once
Yeah,
a month on a Sunday.
that's right. I did
Yeah.
have some more, but I've settled in to the Tuesday night. So it's 7 till 9 UK time, Wednesday morning, 10 till 12 UK time. And then once a month on a Sunday, we do a long session, so 5 hours. So if you want to get stuck into a meaty project, that's fine. But you don't have to be sort of attached to your device for that time. So people will put in the chat, I'm just going downstairs for lunch, or I just need to nip out and walk the dog, or
Yep.
sometimes somebody will message me and saying I'm going for a run, so I won't be on at 10, but I'll be on by about 10:30. That's fine. It's not, we're not clocking in and clocking out at a certain time. Some people have come on. Sue, last time she said, I'm just going to cut out things the whole time that I'm on. So she literally did all the cutting out for all the projects she was going to make in the next month in that in
Wow.
that time.
That's very
Yeah.
good. Very
Yeah.
industrious. Sounds like you're enjoying the group as much as the group is enjoying being together.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I really enjoy it. It's the Quilt Festival in the UK at the end of July, beginning of August. I've not been there before. So one of the girls, Paula, is somebody that I thought, do you know what, if you live nearby, we'd be going out for coffee and getting together. So I reached out to her and said, do you fancy meeting up there? Because that's about 5 hours away for me. It's about 2 hours away for her. So she said yes. So we're going there for 3 days together. And then we've put that out there to others. And some people are coming for different days. So one day we're going to do the Quilt Festival. One day we're going to go to the rag market in Birmingham and look at all the beautiful but very good value fabric and Guthrie Garni. So we're turning it into a nice sort of trip. Like I'm going Wednesday, come back Saturday. But I just think, well, if it wasn't for So Virtual, I wouldn't have met these people.
No, that's
And
right.
so they've got a community, and not everybody can come. Obviously, it depends where you're at in the UK, but Em, who's coming over from Australia in the summer. She was sort of given her route of where she was going with her family, and somebody said, yeah, well, I live there, so when you come and let me know, and then I'll go and meet you. And I was like, oh, how nice is that?
It's lovely.
It's lovely, yeah. And although Sew Virtual is something that I'm running as a business, I wanted it to be very affordable, as if you were going to meet somebody for a coffee, so the price sort of sits in that area.
It is,
Yeah.
It's very good. Thank you for listening to part 1 with Alison Martin, who is Sew Like Dotty. In next week's episode, Alison discusses the sewing challenges she has run online for the sewing community. This episode of Sew Over 50 podcast on Sew Organized Style was audio and video produced by me, Maria Thea Harris, in my sewing room with permission of Alison. Sound by Kanife on YouTube. Many thanks for the ongoing support of the podcast Patreon contributors. Their ongoing support each month enables me to develop this podcast for you for free. You can subscribe to Sew Organized Style podcast spelt with an S, not a Z, on all good podcast apps. Make sure you go back and listen to our free Sew Over 50 podcast archive on Sew Organized Style podcast. Make sure you direct message Sandy and the editors at Sew Over 50 on Instagram to contribute to the ongoing posts and challenges the team promotes to the sewing community of over 53,000 followers. I'll look forward to joining you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.